All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today we're gonna take a look at the tech world. Buckle up because we've got reports on some of the biggest names out there. Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, oh, and IBM, Apple, even
Yeah,
OpenAI.
AI startup, right.
Yeah, exactly. And get this, there's this curveball from China that's really shaking things up. We're going to unpack what's driving the market, who's winning, who's, maybe not doing so
You're
well,
losing, right.
and who's losing. Maybe we'll even uncover some insights that'll make you rethink your own, tech choices.
You know what I find fascinating about all
Just
this?
that.
It's that these aren't just like isolated wins and losses. The decisions these companies are making, they have like ripple effects. And we all feel those, whether we're, hardcore techies or just scrolling on our phones.
Totally. Okay, so let's set the scene. Overall market mood. Kind of shaky, honestly. The Dow, the S&P 500, and especially that tech-heavy NASDAQ, they all took a dip recently. The Fed's tapping the brakes on those interest rate cuts, and I think it's got investors a bit on edge.
Yeah, I can see where there's some nervousness, even though you're right, historically rates are still pretty low. But it's definitely a sign that, that easy money might be drying up. And that can make investors a lot more picky about where they put their cash.
Absolutely. So not exactly a celebration on Wall Street, which makes the successes and the struggles of these tech giants even more interesting. Let's start with Tesla. Their revenue actually missed estimates this quarter. And initially the stock, it dipped. But then, get this, it rallied in after-hours trading. It's like a roller coaster. What's your take on that?
I think it really shows that investors are kind of looking beyond just the immediate numbers. Tesla, they're still the biggest name in electric vehicles. But, and this is a big but, the competition is getting fierce. You've got those legacy automakers finally, stepping up their EV game. And then you have all these new players entering the market. So investors are probably trying to figure out, can Tesla hold on to that lead? Or is this the start of a whole new era?
Right. So it's not just about, how many cars Tesla sells today. It's about, can they stay ahead of the curve as the whole industry changes? Speaking of change, let's look at Meta. They actually beat revenue expectations, which is a big difference from Tesla's story. What's driving their success? Is it all this metaverse stuff they've been talking about?
Well, I think the metaverse is more of a long-term plan for them. This recent success, though, seems to be fueled by a rebound in their core advertising business. Plus, they've been making some smart moves with e-commerce, integrating shopping into their platforms.
Yeah.
So they're diversifying, and it's clearly working.
Interesting to see how these different companies are navigating this whole landscape. Tesla trying to stay on top in a market that's changing rapidly, and then Meta, they're using their existing strengths to find new ways to grow. Now, let's talk about two companies that show that experience can still be a huge asset. Microsoft and IBM, both of them beat revenue expectations this quarter.
Yeah, for Microsoft, a lot of their success is tied to their dominance in cloud computing with Azure. And they're also making serious progress in gaming and enterprise software. Right? They basically become the one-stop shop for businesses and individuals looking for tech solutions.
So they've got their hands in a lot of different things, and it looks like it's working for them. What about IBM? It feels like they've been quietly, reinventing themselves. Are they back in the game?
I think they are. And it's interesting how they're doing it. They're focusing on hybrid cloud offerings, basically a mix of public and private cloud solutions. And that's really resonating with businesses. Plus, their consulting services are helping companies, navigate all the complexities of this digital transformation stuff. This isn't the same old IBM. They've adapted to the modern tech world. And they're finding success, but on their own terms.
Okay, so we've seen companies dealing with a changing market, diversifying their offerings, using their expertise to stay relevant. But now things get really interesting. Nvidia, the chip-making giant, their stock, it took a hit. And the reason? A Chinese AI company called DeepSeek.
This is where you can't ignore the global nature of the tech industry. DeepSeek is making waves with this powerful new AI model. And get this, they developed it for a fraction of the cost compared to their U.S. counterparts. And that's got investors worried, not just about Nvidia, but about, the potential for Chinese companies to disrupt the whole AI landscape.
Wow, this is big. A Chinese company shaking things up in one of the most cutting-edge areas of tech. We got to dig into this DeepSeek story. What's their secret? How did they manage to develop such advanced AI, but so cheaply?
Their approach is pretty innovative, actually. They've developed these proprietary algorithms and techniques that let them train their AI models using way less data and less computing power than the traditional methods. So that means lower development costs. And that gives them a serious competitive edge.
So it's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about finding smarter, more efficient ways to develop AI. This makes me wonder, can U.S. companies keep up? Can they adapt and compete in this new world where innovation and being cost-effective are both super important?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? You've seen success, it's a wake-up call. It shows that U.S. companies need to not just invest in cutting-edge research, but also find ways to streamline their processes and cut costs. It's a race on multiple fronts now.
It's like a strategic chess game, right?
Right.
Every move affects the next one. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about Apple. They've had a bit of a mixed bag this quarter. iPhone sales are down, but their overall revenue is up. And that's thanks to growth in their services sector. How do we make sense of all that?
Well, Apple's results really show a big shift that's happening across the whole tech industry. Hardware, it's becoming less of a differentiator. While software and services, those are taking center stage. Apple's success with Apple Music, iCloud, and all their other services, it shows that they're building this ecosystem that keeps users engaged, beyond just their devices.
Makes you think about my own tech habits, I rarely upgrade my phone these days, but I'm always subscribing to new apps and services. It feels like that's where the real value is now. Is this the future of tech? Less about the gadgets and more about the digital experiences.
It's a trend to watch closely, for sure. The focus is shifting from owning hardware to accessing services and experiences. And that has implications not just for companies like Apple, but for consumers too. We need to be more aware of the data we're sharing, the subscriptions we're signing up for, and the control we have over our digital lives.
You're right. It's easy to get caught up in the convenience of new tech without thinking about the bigger picture. Now, back to Apple. There's this interesting development with their new AI assistant. Apple Intelligence is doing really well in the markets where it's launched, but it's not available in China yet. What do you think will happen when they finally enter that market?
Well, China's a huge market with its own unique tech ecosystem, so it's tough to say for sure. But Apple Intelligence, it has the potential to be a real game changer, those advanced language processing capabilities. And its tight integration with Apple's ecosystem, that could give it a big edge over other AI assistants out there.
Especially considering the struggles companies like Google have had getting into China. Apple's brand loyalty and their huge user base, that could give them a real advantage.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just about market share. It's about the implications for AI development as a whole. China has been putting a ton of resources into AI research, and they're becoming a global leader in the field. The competition between Apple Intelligence and Chinese AI assistants, it could really drive innovation and lead to even more sophisticated AI.
It's like a global AI race is heating up, right? Companies from the US, China, and everywhere else are competing for dominance. But in the midst of all this, Apple has done something pretty impressive. Their gross margin is at an all-time high. For those who aren't familiar with financial terms, can you explain what gross margin means and why it's such a big deal for Apple?
Sure. So gross margin is basically the profit a company makes on each product or service after deducting the costs of actually making it. A high gross margin usually means a company is pricing their stuff well and managing their costs efficiently. For Apple, their high gross margin shows their brand power, their ability to, charge those premium prices, and their really tight control over their supply chain.
So even in a competitive market, they're still profitable. That's really impressive. It shows they can create products and services that people are willing to pay a premium for. Now, we can't forget about the company that's been creating a lot of buzz lately. OpenAI, they're in talks for a funding round that could value them at a mind-blowing $340 billion. That's more than some countries' GDPs.
Yeah, the interest in OpenAI, it reflects how people are starting to see AI differently. It's not just a niche technology anymore. It has the potential to change entire industries. OpenAI's ChatGPT, that generative AI chatbot, it's captured everyone's imagination. And it's shown how powerful AI can be to create, communicate, even solve problems in ways we never thought possible.
I've played around with ChatGPT myself, and it's honestly amazing. You can write code, compose music, even draft emails. It feels like we're on the verge of something huge. But what makes OpenAI so valuable? Is it just the tech, or is there something more?
It's a bunch of factors, really. They have a super talented team of researchers and engineers. They've developed these cutting-edge AI models, and they've been really good at attracting top investors. But maybe their most valuable asset is their data. All the data they've collected and used to train their AI models, that gives them a huge advantage in developing even more sophisticated AI.
Data is the fuel that powers AI, and it sounds like OpenAI has a full tank. But there's another player in this story we should mention, SoftBank, the Japanese investment giant. They're reportedly thinking about a massive investment in OpenAI, which could potentially make them the top backer, even ahead of Microsoft. What's the significance of that?
Well, SoftBank's potential involvement just highlights the global race to invest in and control AI. They're known for making big bets on new technologies. And their interest in OpenAI shows that they see AI as a transformative force, something that could change the world.
So it's not just tech companies battling it out. It's global investment funds recognizing how important AI is and betting on the companies they think will lead the charge. We've covered a lot in this deep dive. We've seen established companies adapt, new companies emerge, and this global race for AI dominance is heating up. But one thing's crystal clear. AI isn't some futuristic fantasy anymore. It's here, it's changing fast, and it's already having a major impact on our lives.
That's a really important point. AI isn't just stuck in research labs or sci-fi movies. It's becoming a part of our everyday lives, from those personalized recommendations we get online to how we use our smartphones. AI is shaping our experiences, even if we don't always realize it.
It's easy to take these advancements for granted, but we should take a moment to think about the bigger picture. What does it mean for our privacy, our security, our jobs, even our understanding of what it means to be human? These are the questions we need to be asking ourselves. As AI keeps evolving.
Before we move on, I want to go back to something we talked about with DeepSeek. Their ability to make advanced AI but cheaper, it could really change the industry. It's not just about competition. It's about access.
Access, what do you mean by that?
Think about it. If developing AI becomes more affordable, it opens up opportunities for everyone. New players, smaller companies, even researchers in developing countries, that barrier to entry, it could be way lower. And that could lead to a democratization of AI, with innovation happening all over the world.
So DeepSeek being so cost-effective could actually make AI develop faster.
Exactly.
And make it used more widely, globally.
Yeah.
That's pretty huge. Makes you wonder how U.S. companies are going to respond. Will they try to, copy DeepSeek's approach, or will they just focus on making even more advanced AI?
I think we'll probably see a mix of both. Some companies might try to, make their current processes better to be more competitive on cost, while others might go all in on research and development, aiming for those big breakthroughs that keep them ahead technologically.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. It's like a chess match, with each move influencing the next.
Speaking of strategic moves, let's talk about Apple. They've had a kind of a mixed bag this quarter, right? iPhone sales are down, but overall revenue is up thanks to strong growth in their services. So how do we make sense of that?
Apple's results really show a shift that's happening in tech. Hardware, it's not the main thing that sets companies apart anymore. It's software and services that are becoming more important. Apple's success with things like Apple Music and iCloud, it shows that they're good at building an ecosystem that keeps users engaged, not just with their devices, but with the whole Apple world.
It's true. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
I hardly ever upgrade my phone anymore, but I'm always subscribing to new apps and services. It feels like that's where the real value is these days. So is this the future of tech then? Less about the actual gadgets and more about what they let us do? I think it's definitely a trend worth watching. The focus is moving away from owning stuff to accessing services and experiences. And that has, implications for everyone. Companies like Apple, of course, but also for us, the consumers. We got to be more aware of the data we're giving up, the subscriptions we're racking up, and how much control we actually have over our digital lives.
It's a good point. It's easy to just enjoy the convenience of new tech without thinking about the bigger picture. Okay, so back to Apple for a sec. There's this interesting thing happening with their new AI assistant, Apple Intelligence. It's been a hit in the places it's launched, but it's not in China yet. What do you think will happen when they finally go into that market?
Well, China's a whole different ballgame. Huge market, their own way of doing things in tech. So it's hard to predict. But Apple Intelligence, it could be a real disruptor. It's got that advanced language processing. It's tightly integrated with Apple's ecosystem. That could give it a big advantage.
Especially when you consider how much trouble companies like Google have had breaking into China. Apple's brand loyalty and their massive user base, that could really help them.
Absolutely. And this isn't just about, who gets the most customers. It's about what it means for AI development in general.
Yeah.
China's been investing a lot in AI research. They're becoming a global leader. So the competition between Apple Intelligence and AI assistants from China, It could really push things forward, lead to some amazing new developments.
It's like a global AI race, right? With companies from everywhere trying to be on top. But in all of this competition, Apple's managed to do something incredible. They've got their gross margin at an all-time high. Now, for those who don't speak finance, can you explain what gross margin is and why it matters so much for Apple?
Sure, so gross margin is basically how much profit a company makes on each product or service once you take out the cost of making it. A high gross margin means the company's pricing their stuff well, and they're managing their costs really effectively. For Apple, it shows how strong their brand is. They can charge premium prices, and they have a really tight grip on their supply chain.
So they're making money even in a tough market. That's pretty impressive. Shows they know how to make things people want or are willing to pay for. Now, we can't forget about OpenAI. They've been making headlines. They're in talks for funding that could put their value at, get this, $340 billion. That's more than some countries' entire economies.
It's crazy, right? All this interest in OpenAI shows that people are starting to see AI differently. It's not just some niche thing anymore. It has the power to transform entire industries. Their ChatGPT, that AI chatbot, it's captured everyone's attention. And it's a real example of how powerful AI can be to create, communicate, solve problems in ways we never thought of before.
I've played with ChatGPT. It's mind-blowing. It writes code, makes music, even writes emails. Feels like we're at the beginning of something revolutionary. But what makes OpenAI so valuable? Is it just the tech, or is there more to it?
It's a combination of things, really. They've got a brilliant team, they've developed some cutting-edge AI models, and they've been really successful at attracting investors. But I think their most valuable thing is their data. All that data they've collected and used to train their AI, it gives them a huge advantage in developing even more sophisticated AI.
Data is like the fuel for AI, and it sounds like OpenAI has a full tank. But there's another player here, SoftBank, the Japanese investment giant. Word is they're thinking about a massive investment in OpenAI, which could make them the top backer, even bigger than Microsoft. So what's the big deal about that?
SoftBank getting involved, it just highlights this global race to invest in and control AI. They're known for taking risks on new tech. And their interest in OpenAI, it shows that they see AI as a game changer, something that could reshape the world.
So it's not just tech companies fighting it out, it's global investment funds recognizing how important AI is and putting their money where their mouth is. We've talked about a lot in this deep dive. We've seen big companies adapt, new companies come out of nowhere, and this global race for AI, it's really heating up. But one thing's for sure, AI isn't science fiction anymore. It's here, it's changing quickly, and it's already having a big impact on all of us.
You're right, it's not just some futuristic idea. AI is becoming part of our daily lives. From those personalized suggestions we get online to how we use our phones, AI is shaping our world, even if we don't always see it.
It's easy to just accept these new things without really thinking about them. But we should stop and consider what it all means. What does it mean for our privacy, our security, our jobs, even what it means to be human? These are the questions we need to be asking as AI continues to evolve. We've looked at the market, how it's going up and down, really dug into what these companies are doing, and we even found this surprise from China, really shaking things up in the AI world. But as we wrap up, I keep thinking, what does all this mean for us, the people actually using this tech?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? It's easy to focus on the headlines and the stock prices. But in the end, technology matters because of how it affects our lives. And what we're seeing now, it's like all these trends are coming together. And it could change how we work, how we talk to each other, how we learn, even how we think.
It's almost like we're, standing at the edge of something totally new. We can kind of see the outlines of this new world shaped by AI, cloud computing, this global competition, but the details are still fuzzy. So what are some of the key things you think people should be watching out for as we move into this uncharted territory?
One thing that really stands out to me is how much more personalized tech is becoming. AI is letting companies tailor experiences to each individual user in ways that, just a few years ago, we couldn't even imagine. This could be a good thing, right? More relevant recommendations, more efficient services, maybe even healthcare that's more personalized.
It's like having a personal assistant who knows exactly what you like and what you need, which sounds pretty amazing, but I also wonder, are there downsides? Could this lead to, filter bubbles where we only see information that agrees with what we already believe? Or could we become so reliant on AI that we forget how to think for ourselves?
Those are definitely valid concerns. And they highlight how important it is to be smart about how we use technology. We need to understand how AI is shaping our experiences, and we have to actively look for different perspectives, challenge our own assumptions.
So it's not just about accepting the tech that's given to us. It's about engaging with it critically, making sure it actually works for us. And speaking of that, we've seen this intense competition between the US and China in tech, especially with AI. Do you think this rivalry in the end, will it help or hurt progress?
That's a tough one. There's no easy answer. On one hand, competition can be a good thing. It pushes everyone to innovate, to create better, faster, more efficient tech. But on the other hand, if it gets too nasty, it could split the tech world apart. With different countries developing their own systems that don't work together, that could slow things down, make things harder, even create security problems.
It's like we need to find a balance, right? Enough competition to keep things moving forward, but also enough cooperation to make sure tech benefits everyone and doesn't cause more problems. As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what do you think the future holds for tech? What are you most excited about, or maybe even worried about?
What gets me excited is how AI could help us solve some of the world's biggest problems. Climate change, disease, poverty. AI could help us be more creative, more effective in tackling these challenges. But I'm also a little cautious. There's the risk of AI being misused, whether intentionally or not. We have to be careful how we develop and use AI, make sure it aligns with our values, that it's used for good.
It's a reminder that tech is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used in good ways or bad ways. It's up to us to guide how tech develops and make sure it leads to a future we can all be proud of.
Absolutely. We can't just be passive users. We have to actively shape how tech is developed and used. The decisions we make today will have big consequences down the road. So it's crucial that we have these conversations, challenge assumptions, and demand that tech serves humanity.
Well, this has been an incredible journey through the world of tech. We've seen companies come and go, witnessed groundbreaking innovations, and really grappled with the impact of AI, how it's becoming more and more influential. But more importantly, we've been reminded that the future of tech isn't set in stone. It's being created right now by the choices we make, the questions we ask, and the actions we take.
And as we finish this deep dive and go back to our everyday lives, I hope you take with you a sense of curiosity, a desire to learn, and a commitment to using your voice and your choices to shape the future of tech in a way that benefits everyone.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little inspiring. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pushing the limits of what's possible.